The memorial park was empty at dawn. Maya stood at its center, her camera hanging heavy around her neck, untouched. The grass beneath her feet was still wet with dew, and somewhere in the distance, a bird called out to the waking city. But she heard none of it. Her eyes were fixed on a small bronze plaque embedded in a stone bench, and the name etched into it made her chest tighten with a pain that felt both old and unbearably fresh. Sophie Cole, 1990, 2022. Who taught us to find light in the shadows? A tear slipped down Maya's cheek before she could stop it. She had been here before, of course, many times, but never like this, never with the weight of what she now knew pressing against her ribs like a physical thing. The morning light filtered through the trees in golden shafts, illuminating the carefully designed spaces between them. Invisible spaces, she thought. The kind Sophie would have loved. Maya raised her camera finally and looked through the viewfinder. But her hands were shaking too much to focus. Behind her footsteps on the gravel path, she didn't turn around. She already knew who it was. "You came," Ethan's voice was quiet, careful. Maya lowered the camera. "I had to." They stood there 3 feet apart, two broken people in a park built for memory and healing. And in that silence hung a question neither of them was ready to answer. How did we get here 3 months earlier? The coffee shop was exactly the kind of place Jennifer would choose. Too quirky to be a chain, too polished to be authentically divey. String lights crisscrossed the ceiling, and indie folk music played just loud enough to be noticed, but not loud enough to intrude. Maya arrived 10 minutes early, which meant that she had 10 minutes to regret agreeing to this. Blind dates. She'd sworn them off after the disaster last spring when the guy had spent 2 hours explaining cryptocurrency to her like she was a particularly slow child. But Jennifer had been persistent, almost unnervingly so. "Just meet him," Jennifer had said 3 weeks ago over lunch. "One coffee. If you hate it, you can fake a phone call and leave. I'll even call you myself at the 30-minute mark if you want." "Why are you so invested in my love life?" Maya had asked. Jennifer had looked away, then something flickering across her face that Maya couldn't quite read. "Because you deserve to be happy, and I think you will be. With him." That certainty should have been a red flag, but Maya had said yes anyway because she was tired of being alone and because Jennifer was one of those people who genuinely cared even when it was inconvenient. Now sitting at a corner table with a clear view of the door, Maya reminded herself that she could leave at any time. She checked her phone. 6:52 p.m. He was supposed to be here at 7. The door opened. Maya looked up and something in her chest shifted. The man who walked in was tall with dark hair that fell slightly into his eyes and a posture that suggested he carried weight that wasn't physical. He wore a simple gray sweater and jeans, nothing remarkable, but there was something in the way he moved. Deliberate, like every step was chosen with care. His eyes scanned the room, and when they landed on her, he paused, just for a moment. Then he smiled small and uncertain and walked over. "Maya." She nodded, standing to shake his hand. His grip was warm and firm, but not aggressive. "Ethan?" "Yeah." He let go and gestured to the chair across from her. "May I, please?" They sat. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable exactly, but it was weighted. Maya found herself studying him the way she would study a landscape before photographing it, looking for light, for shadows, for the spaces in between. "So," Ethan said after a moment, "Jennifer tells me you're a photographer. She tells me you're an architect." "Guilty." He smiled again, and this time it reached his eyes just barely. "I design public spaces mostly. Parks, plazas, that sort of thing." "That's interesting." Maya meant it. "I photograph spaces, usually the ones people don't look at twice." Something changed in his expression then. A spark of recognition maybe, or curiosity. "Like what?" "Alleys, empty parking lots, the underside of bridges, places that exist but don't exist, you know." She paused suddenly, self-conscious. She wasn't usually this open this quickly. "I'm working on a book. I call it Invisible Spaces." Ethan leaned forward slightly. "I think about invisible spaces all the time. As an architect, you're taught to think about positive space, the structures you create. But negative space, the emptiness, that's where the magic happens. That's where people breathe." Maya blinked. In 3 sentences, he'd understood something most people never did. "Exactly," she said softly. The waitress came, then breaking the moment, and they ordered coffee for her, tea for him. simple choices that somehow felt significant. "How long have you been working on the book?" Ethan asked once they were alone again. "About 2 years. I keep adding to it. I'm not sure when it'll be done." Some things aren't meant to be finished quickly. There was something in the way he said it, like he was talking about more than just a photo book. Maya wanted to ask, but she held back. Too soon. Instead, she asked, "What about you? What project are you working on now?" Ethan's face shuddered slightly. "A memorial park. It's almost done. Just need to finalize a few details." "Almost done is still not done." "No." He looked down at his hands. "No, it's not." The conversation could have died there. Should have, maybe. But instead, Maya heard herself saying, "Jennifer's been weirdly pushy about this. About us meeting." Ethan laughed, a short, surprised sound. "She hasn't she? Marcus warned me she was on a mission." "A mission for what?" "Apparently to save two hopeless cases from terminal loneliness." Maya couldn't help but smile. "Are we hopeless?" "Probably." He met her eyes, then in the honesty in them made her breath catch. "But maybe that's not the worst thing to be." 4 hours passed like 40 minutes. They talked about Seattle, about the way the city changed depending on where you stood, about architecture and photography and the strange overlap between them, about their childhoods, though both kept certain doors closed, about books and bad movies and the best place to get dumplings at 2 a.m. Ethan told her about a building he'd designed in Portland, how it had won an award, but he'd never felt quite satisfied with it. Maya told him about a series of photos she'd taken in an abandoned theater, how she'd submitted them to a gallery and been rejected, but somehow that rejection had felt right. "Sometimes things aren't meant to be seen by everyone," she'd said. "Sometimes they're meant for just one person," he'd replied. The coffee shop began to empty around them. The waitress started wiping down tables with pointed efficiency. Maya glanced at her phone and was startled to see it was nearly 11. "We should probably go," she said reluctantly. "Yeah." Ethan stood, but he didn't reach for his coat immediately. "Can I walk you to your car?" "I took the bus." "Then can I walk you to the bus stop?" Maya smiled. "It's 4 blocks away." Even better. They stepped out into the October night. The air was crisp, smelling faintly of rain and fallen leaves. Seattle at night had a particular quality, a softness that Maya had always loved. The lights from the buildings reflected in puddles, creating doubles of everything. They walked slowly, neither in a hurry. At one point their hands brushed, and Maya felt that touch all the way up her arm. "This is weird, right?" she said suddenly. Ethan glanced at her. "What is this? How easy this is. First dates aren't supposed to be easy." "Maybe we're doing it wrong. Or maybe we've both been doing it wrong for so long that this feels weird." He considered that. Fair point. They reached the bus stop, but there was a small park across the street bordering Lake Union. Without discussing it, they both turned toward it. The water was dark and still reflecting the city lights in rippling patterns. A few other people walked along the path, but it felt private somehow. Maya pulled out her camera before she could overthink it. She didn't ask permission, just raised it and looked through the viewfinder. The lake, the lights, the way the clouds hung low over the Space Needle in the distance. She clicked the shutter once, twice. Ethan watched her work. He didn't speak, didn't interrupt. And when she lowered the camera, he simply said, "Can I see?" She showed him the screen. The image was simple, almost stark. Just water and light and the suggestion of something beyond. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. "It's Seattle," Maya replied. "It's always beautiful when you look at it right." They stood there for a long moment side by side, not touching, but not distant either. The silence between them was comfortable in a way that felt dangerous. Maya had learned over the years to be wary of comfort. It was the thing that hurt most when it left. "I should ask for your number," Ethan said finally. "If you want, if this isn't just a one-time thing." Maya's heart did something complicated in her chest. She wanted to say yes. She also wanted to run. Instead, she heard herself say, "Do you want it to be a one-time thing?" "No," he said simply, "but I'm not good at this, at dating, at letting people in. I should probably warn you about that." "I'm not good at it either," Maya admitted. "I have a habit of leaving before things get too real." "So we're both a mess." "Sounds about right." Ethan pulled out his phone. "Then let's be a mess together, or at least exchange numbers and see what happens." Maya gave him her number. He gave her his. They stood there awkwardly for a moment, neither quite sure how to end this. I had a really good time tonight, Maya said. Me too. Jennifer's going to be insufferably smug about this. Oh, absolutely. Ethan smiled, and this time there was real warmth in it. But maybe she earned it. Maya's bus was coming up the street, its headlights cutting through the dark. She should go. She knew she should go, but her feet didn't move. I'll text you, Ethan said. If that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. The bus pulled up to the stop. Maya forced herself to walk toward it, but at the last second she turned back. Ethan, he was still standing there, hands in his pockets, watching her. Yeah, thank you for tonight. Thank you for not faking a phone call at the 30-minute mark. She laughed, surprised. How did you know about that? Jennifer told Marcus, who told me. They're not subtle. No, Maya agreed. They're really not. She got on the bus, found a seat by the window. As the bus pulled away, she looked back and saw Ethan still standing there, a dark figure against the city lights. He raised one hand in a small wave. Maya waved back. And then the bus turned a corner and he was gone. At home, Maya went through her usual routine. Hung up her coat, made tea she wouldn't drink, opened her laptop to edit photos she'd taken earlier that week. But her mind was elsewhere. She kept thinking about the way Ethan had looked at her. Not with desire exactly, or at least not just desire. There had been recognition in his eyes, like he was seeing something familiar in her, something he had lost and was surprised to find again. It scared her. Maya didn't do relationships, not real ones. She did 6 months, maybe 8, if she was feeling brave. But always, there came a point where she felt the walls closing in, felt the expectations building, and she ran. It was easier that way, cleaner. But tonight, sitting in that coffee shop with Ethan, she hadn't felt trapped. She'd felt seen, and that was so much more terrifying than being desired. Her phone buzzed, a text from Jennifer. So Maya stared at the screen for a long moment before typing back. You're insufferable. Is that a yes or a no? It's a we'll see. That's a yes in Maya speak. I'm taking it as a yes. Maya smiled despite herself and set the phone down. She should sleep. It was late and she had a client shoot tomorrow morning. Instead, she found herself opening her photo archive. Years of work, thousands of images, organized by date and project. She scrolled back, not sure what she was looking for, and then she found it. A folder labeled Emma and David's Wedding, 2018. Maya's chest tightened. She almost closed the laptop, almost. But her finger was already on the trackpad, clicking open the folder. There were hundreds of photos. She'd been hired as a second shooter, a favor for a friend. It had been a beautiful wedding, all golden hour light and genuine joy. She scrolled through quickly at first, then slower as she reached the reception. And there, in the background of a group shot, barely visible, but unmistakably there, stood a young couple. The woman was laughing, her head thrown back, blonde hair catching the light. The man beside her had his arm around her waist, looking at her with an expression of such open adoration that it almost hurt to see. Oh, Maya knew that woman. Had known her. Sophie Chen. Well, Sophie Cole by then, Maya supposed. They'd been inseparable in college, the kind of friends who finished each other's sentences and shared clothes and dreams. But after graduation, life had pulled them in different directions. Different cities, different careers. They tried to stay in touch, but it had dwindled to Christmas cards and occasional texts. The last time Maya had seen Sophie in person was at this wedding. They'd hugged, promised to get coffee soon, both knowing they probably wouldn't. And then 2 years later, Sophie had died. Car accident. Sudden. Senseless. Maya had found out through Facebook, of all things. A mutual friend's paw flowers and condolences and disbelief. She'd gone to the funeral, stood in the back, watched from a distance as Sophie's husband, her family, her newer friends said goodbye. Maya hadn't felt like she had the right to grieve publicly. Not when she'd let their friendship fade. Not when she'd been the ones to cancel their last attempt at meeting up, choosing a photography gig over Sophie over friendship. She'd carried that guilt for 3 years now, a small sharp stone in her chest. And now, looking at this photo, Maya finally saw the man beside Sophie. Really saw him. The shape of his face, the dark hair, the way he stood like he was carrying weight that wasn't physical. Oh God, Ethan. Ethan was Sophie's husband. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. The laptop screen blurred as tears filled her eyes. She thought about tonight, about how easy it had been, how comfortable, about the way he'd talked about loss without saying the words, about the memorial park he couldn't quite finish. He'd lost Sophie, and Maya had been there when they were happy, had captured them in a moment of joy, unknowing that it would be one of the last. Had Jennifer known, she must have. That's why she'd been so insistent, so certain they would connect. Because they both loved Sophie. Because they'd both lost her. But did Ethan know who Maya was? He hadn't seemed to recognize her. They'd probably never been introduced at that wedding, just two faces in a crowd of hundreds. Maya closed the laptop with shaking hands. This changed everything. It had to. She couldn't see Ethan again. Not now, not with this between them. It would be too complicated, too heavy with unspoken history. He was trying to move on, and she was a ghost from his happiest memories. Her phone buzzed again. This time an unknown number. Hi, it's Ethan. I know I said I'd text tomorrow, but I wanted to say again that tonight was really nice. I hope you made it home. Okay. Maya stared at the message. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She should tell him, should say, I knew your wife. I'm so sorry for your loss. This is too complicated. Instead, she typed, made it home safe. Tonight was nice for me too. His reply came quickly. Good, sleep well, Maya, you too. She set the phone down and buried her face in her hands. What had she done? What was she going to do? The next morning came too quickly and without answers. Maya dragged herself through her client shoot, a corporate headshot session that required more smiling and small talk than she had energy for. But she was professional. She delivered, and by noon she was back in her car, exhausted. Her phone showed 3 missed texts from Jennifer and 1 from Ethan. Jennifer first. Okay, I need details. Marcus says I'm being too nosy, but I'm dying here. Coffee this week, please, Maya typed back. Yes to coffee, but not today. Tomorrow the response was immediate. Yes, same place, 2 p.m. Then she opened Ethan's message. It was a photo. Lake Union at sunrise, the water calm and pink with reflected light. Below it, went for an early walk. Made me think of you. Something warm and painful bloomed in Maya's chest. She wanted to not respond, wanted to let this die naturally before it became something real. But she couldn't. She scrolled through her own recent photos and sent one back. An empty alley she'd photographed last week, early morning light cutting geometric shadows across brick walls. Invisible spaces, she wrote. Beautiful, he replied. Are you free this Saturday? I'd love to show you something. Maya's thumb hovered over the keyboard. This was the moment. She could say no, could pull away before it got complicated. But it was already complicated. It had been complicated from the moment they sat down at that coffee shop. What kind of something? A surprise. But I think you'll like it. Trust me. She shouldn't. She knew she shouldn't. Okay, she typed. I trust you. Saturday arrived wrapped in gray clouds and the threat of rain. Ethan picked Maya up at her apartment in an old silver Subaru that looked like it had seen better days but was meticulously maintained. Classical music played softly from the speakers. Morning, he said as she climbed in. Coffee? He handed her a to-go cup from her favorite coffee shop, the one near her place. She looked at him surprised. Jennifer might have mentioned you're particular about coffee, he admitted. Remind me to thank her and also kill her. He smiled. Fair. They drove north out of the city past the university district and into neighborhoods Maya didn't know well. The rain that had been threatening finally started light and persistent. Ethan turned on the wipers and they made a rhythmic squeak against the windshield. So where are we going? Maya asked. Patience, was not one of my virtues. I'm learning that. They fell into comfortable silence. Maya watched the city slide past, then suburbs, then something that wasn't quite either. Ethan drove with one hand relaxed, and Maya found herself studying his profile. The straight line of his nose, the slight shadow of stubble on his jaw, the way his eyes focused on the road with that same deliberate intensity she'd noticed on their first date. You're staring, he said, not looking at her. Sorry. I didn't say stop. Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks. She looked away out the window, trying to hide her smile. 20 minutes later, Ethan turned down a narrow street and pulled into a gravel parking lot. There was nothing here, just trees and what looked like an old gate with a no trespassing sign. This is either very romantic or the beginning of a true crime podcast, Maya said. Ethan laughed, really laughed, and the sound was so genuine that Maya felt something loosen in her chest. I promise no murder. Come on. He led her around the gate down a path that was barely visible through the overgrowth. The rain had softened to mist clinging to their hair and clothes. They walked for maybe 5 minutes, and then the trees opened up. Before them stood the ruins of what must have once been a grand building. Stone pillars, broken windows, walls reclaimed by ivy and moss. But there was something beautiful about the decay, the way nature was taking it back. What is this place? Maya breathed. Old sanitarium, built in 1902, abandoned in the 70s. The city owns it now, but they can't decide whether to tear it down or restore it. Ethan walked forward slowly. I come here sometimes to think. Maya was already reaching for her camera. She couldn't help it. This place was exactly what she looked for. Forgotten, empty, haunting. She moved through the space photographing, the way light fell through broken windows, the pattern of leaves on cracked tile, a single chair inexplicably left behind in what must have been a common room. Ethan didn't interrupt. He simply watched her work, and there was something about his presence that felt right, like he understood that this was how she processed the world through a viewfinder. After maybe an hour, Maya finally lowered the camera and turned to him. Thank you, she said. This is perfect. I thought you might like it. It's an invisible space in its own way. People drive past it every day and never know it's here. They walked through the ruins together more slowly now. Ethan told her what he knew of the building's history, the patients who had lived here, the treatments that seemed barbaric now but were cutting edge then, the scandal that had led to its closure. Do you ever think about that? Maya asked. How places hold memory, like the walls remember even when we don't. All the time, Ethan said quietly. I design spaces for memory. Memorials mostly, places where people go to remember. I think about what makes a space feel sacred, feel important. And I think the best ones are the ones that leave room for silence. They'd reached what might have been a courtyard once, though. Now it was just a clearing ringed by broken walls. In the center, a single tree grew old and twisted, but alive. Ethan sat down on a low stone wall. Maya joined him. The mist had stopped and the clouds were breaking up, letting through pale sunlight. Can I ask you something? Maya said. Of course. Why did you agree to this? To the blind date, I mean. You don't seem like the type. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. I haven't dated in a long time. Years. Jennifer and Marcus kept pushing, kept saying I needed to get back out there. And I kept saying no. He picked at a loose stone. But then Jennifer said something that stuck with me. She said someone you loved wouldn't want you to stop living. And I knew she was right. Maya's heart clenched. Someone he loved. Sophie. What about you? Ethan asked. Why did you say yes? Maya considered lying, considered making something up about being lonely or bored or susceptible to peer pressure. But sitting here in this forgotten place with this man who seemed to understand silence, she found herself telling the truth. I'm scared of getting close to people, she said. I always have been. It's easier to keep things surface level, to leave before it gets complicated. But I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being alone even when I'm with someone. She looked at him. When Jennifer told me about you, she said something that got to me. She said you were someone who understood that broken things can still be beautiful. Ethan met her eyes. There was something raw in his expression, something vulnerable. I think broken things are the only things that are beautiful. They sat there, inches apart, the ruins around them, silent except for birds and wind. Maya wanted to reach for his hand, wanted to close that small distance between them. But she thought about Sophie, about the woman in the wedding photo laughing with her whole heart, about the secret Maya carried, the knowledge that connected them in ways Ethan didn't even know. She couldn't do this, not without honesty. Ethan, she started, her voice shaking slightly. There's something I should tell you. He looked at her, waiting open, and Maya lost her nerve. I really like you, she said instead. That scares me. Something softened in his face. It scares me too. What do we do about that? I don't know. He did reach for her hand, then his fingers threading through hers carefully like he was asking permission with the gesture. But maybe we figure it out together. Maya looked down at their joined hands. It felt like a promise, like a beginning, and also like a betrayal of something she couldn't name. Yeah, she whispered. Together. The weeks that followed had a dreamlike quality to them, and Maya and Ethan fell into a rhythm that felt both new and ancient. Coffee on Tuesday mornings before work. Long walks through the city on weekends, mapping invisible spaces together. Late-night texts that started practical and ended philosophical. But beneath the ease, Maya carried her secret like a stone in her pocket. Every time Ethan smiled at her, every time he reached for her hand, she felt the weight of Sophie between them. The woman he'd loved. The friend Maya had failed. She told herself she would tell him. Soon. Just not yet. Not when things were so fragile and new. Not when she was just learning what it felt like to be seen by someone who actually looked. It was a gray Wednesday afternoon when Ethan called, his voice carrying an unfamiliar tension. Are you free right now? He asked. I know it's random, but I could really use some company. Maya was in her studio editing photos from a shoot, but she closed her laptop without hesitation. Where are you, Betoma? Gracewood Care Center. It's a nursing home in Ballard. Her heart clenched. Is everything okay? A pause. Not really, but it will be. Can you come? I'm on my way. Gracewood was one of those facilities that tried hard to not feel institutional. Warm lighting, art on the walls, plants in every corner. But there was still something about the smell, antiseptic, and resignation that made Maya's chest tight. She found Ethan in the lobby, standing by a window, staring out at nothing. When he turned and saw her, something in his shoulders relaxed. Thanks for coming, he said quietly. I'm sorry for the weird request. Don't be. Maya touched his arm. What's going on? My mom lives here, early stage Alzheimer's. Most days she's okay, lucid. But some days, he trailed off, running a hand through his hair. Today's not a good day, and I couldn't do it alone. Maya's heart broke for him. You want me to meet her? If you're okay with it, I'll understand if it's too much too soon. Ethan, she waited until he looked at her. I'm okay with it. They walked down a corridor painted in soft blues, past rooms where elderly residents watched television or slept or stared at walls. Ethan stopped at a door marked 2B and knocked softly before opening it. The room inside was small but personalized. Photographs covered one wall, Ethan as a child, family gatherings, landscapes. A woman sat in a chair by the window, thin and elegant, even in a cardigan and slippers. Her hair was silver and cut short, and when she looked up, Maya saw where Ethan got his eyes. Mom, Ethan said gently, I brought someone to meet you. The woman's gaze moved to Maya, and for a moment there was nothing there, just blankness. Then something flickered. Sophie. Her voice was soft, hopeful. Sophie, sweetheart, you came. Maya felt the floor tilt beneath her. She looked at Ethan, saw the pain flash across his face before he carefully schooled it away. Mom, no. This is Maya. She's a friend. But his mother wasn't listening. She was standing now, moving toward Maya with surprising speed, reaching for her hands. Sophie, I'm so glad you're here. Ethan's been so sad. Tell him he doesn't have to be sad anymore. Maya's eyes filled with tears. She didn't know what to do. Ethan started to step forward to correct her again, but Maya caught his gaze and shook her head slightly. Instead, she took his mother's hands in hers and sat down in the chair beside her. It's okay, Maya said softly. Everything's going to be okay. The older woman smiled, her whole face transforming. I knew you'd come back. I told Ethan you wouldn't leave us alone forever. You loved him too much. Maya felt like she was drowning. She held the woman's hands and listened as she talked about Sophie, about memories Maya had no part of, about a Thanksgiving dinner and a trip to the coast, and the day Sophie had helped her plant tulips in the garden. Ethan sat on the bed, his face unreadable. But Maya could see his hands shaking slightly, could see the way he was fighting to hold himself together. After maybe 20 minutes, the confusion seemed to ease. Ethan's mother blinked, looked at Maya more carefully. You're not Sophie, she said, but there was no accusation in it, just observation. No, Maya said gently. I'm Maya, Ethan's friend. Maya, the woman tested the name. That's a pretty name. You have kind eyes. Thank you. Do you make my son happy? Maya glanced at Ethan. He was looking at her now, and there was something raw in his expression. I hope so, Maya said. Good. The woman patted her hand. He deserves to be happy. He's been sad for so long. They left an hour later after his mother had fallen asleep in her chair, a blanket tucked around her shoulders. Ethan was silent as they walked through the corridor, through the lobby, out into the parking lot where rain had started to fall. He stopped by his car and just stood there, head bowed, hands in his pockets. Ethan, Maya said, I'm sorry. His voice was rough. I shouldn't have brought you into that. It wasn't fair. Stop. She thought you were Sophie, my wife, my dead wife. He looked at her and his eyes were red. How fucked up is that? Maya stepped closer. It's not fucked up. It's sad, but it's not fucked up. You didn't have to play along. I know. Maya's voice was quiet, but she needed it. And I think maybe you needed it too. Ethan made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. I haven't talked about her, about Sophie, with anyone, not really, not since the funeral. The name hung between them, Sophie. Finally spoken aloud, Maya felt something crack open in her chest. Tell me about her. What? Tell me about Sophie, please. So there in a nursing home parking lot in the rain, Ethan talked about his wife. He told Maya about how they'd met in grad school, how Sophie had been the one to approach him confident and bright and completely out of his league, how she'd loved cities and people and noise, everything he was uncomfortable with, but somehow they'd balanced each other perfectly. He told her about their wedding small and chaotic, and how Sophie had laughed when she'd tripped on her dress walking down the aisle. About the tiny apartment they'd shared, barely big enough for one person, let alone two, and Sophie's collection of plants and books and vintage cameras. He told her about the good years, the years when everything felt possible. And then he told her about the call, the one that came on an ordinary Tuesday. How Sophie had been driving home from visiting a friend, how the other driver had run a red light, how it had been instant, how she hadn't suffered. Everyone kept saying that, Ethan said, his voice breaking, like it made it better, that she didn't suffer, but I suffered. I'm still suffering. Maya couldn't help it. She closed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around him, and Ethan collapsed into the embrace like he'd been holding himself up by sheer will and finally didn't have to anymore. He cried against her shoulder, and Maya held him, and the rain fell around them cold and persistent. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were swollen, but clearer somehow. Thank you, he said, for staying, for listening, for not running. But Maya felt like running. She felt like sprinting as far and as fast as she could. Because now she knew. She'd heard Sophie's story from Ethan's lips, and the weight of what she was hiding felt unbearable. She should tell him now, right now, that she'd known Sophie, that she'd been there at the edges of their happiness, capturing it without knowing how precious and fleeting it was. But she looked at his face red and exhausted and raw, and she couldn't add to his pain. Not today. Come on, she said instead. Let's get you home. The following week, Ethan asked Maya to work on the Invisible Spaces project with him officially. You photograph the spaces, he said over coffee at their usual spot. I'll document them architecturally. We can create something together, a book maybe, or an exhibition. Maya should have said no, should have created distance, given herself time to figure out how to tell him the truth. But instead she said yes because the idea of creating something with him felt right in a way few things in her life ever had. They spent every spare moment mapping the city's forgotten places. An abandoned movie theater in Georgetown, its marquee still listing films from 1987. A warehouse district where street art covered every surface in layers of meaning. The underside of the Aurora Bridge, where light and shadow played in patterns that changed by the hour. Ethan would measure, sketch, make notes about structure and design. Maya would photograph, looking for moments of unexpected beauty, and somehow their two perspectives created something neither could have made alone. It was during one of these explorations in a derelict warehouse that smelled of rust and time that Ethan told her about the memorial park. It's for Sophie, he said, sitting on a windowsill, while Maya photographed the way afternoon light fell through broken glass. I started designing it 6 months after she died, but I can't finish it. Maya lowered her camera. Why not? Because finishing it feels like letting go, like saying goodbye for real. He was quiet for a moment. And I'm not ready for that. Maybe you don't have to be ready, Maya said carefully. Maybe you just have to be willing. Ethan looked at her, something shifting in his expression. You're very wise for someone who claims to run from commitment. I'm full of contradictions. I'm learning that. He stood, walked over to where she stood. Can I ask you something? Always. Why do you run? When things get real, why do you leave? Maya's throat tightened. She'd known this question was coming eventually, because everyone leaves eventually. It's easier to be the one who goes than the one who gets left. Has anyone ever asked you to stay? No, Maya admitted. They usually don't notice I'm gone. Ethan reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so gentle, it made her want to cry. I would notice. That's what I'm afraid of. They stood there close enough to kiss, but not quite touching otherwise. Maya's heart was beating so hard she was sure he could hear it. I'm falling for you, Ethan said quietly. I thought you should know that, so you can run if you need to. Maya felt like the ground was opening up beneath her feet. Ethan, you don't have to say it back. You don't have to say anything. I needed you to know. He started to pull away, but Maya caught his hand. I'm falling too, she whispered, and it's terrifying. This time when he kissed her, she didn't pull away. She leaned in, let herself have this just for a moment. His lips were soft and tentative, asking rather than taking, and Maya answered with everything she couldn't say out loud. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard. We should probably talk about this, Ethan said. Probably. But not here. No, not here. They left the warehouse holding hands, and Maya tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. It was Jennifer who finally forced the truth to the surface. Maya had been avoiding her, making excuses about being busy with work and the project. But Jennifer was persistent, and eventually Maya ran out of ways to say no to coffee. They met at the same place where Maya and Ethan had their first date, and the symmetry of it felt cruel. You've been avoiding me, Jennifer said once they were settled with drinks. I've been busy. Bullshit. Jennifer's voice was kind but firm. What's going on? I thought you and Ethan were doing well. We are. Maya stared at her cup. That's the problem. How is that a problem? Maya looked up, met her friend's eyes. You knew, didn't you? You knew Ethan was Sophie's husband when you set us up. Jennifer's face went very still. Maya, don't. Maya's voice shook. Don't lie to me. Not about this. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed, slumping back in her chair. Yes, I knew. Why? The word came out raw. Why would you do that? Do you have any idea how fucked up this is? I know how it looks. Do you? Maya's hands were shaking. I knew Sophie Jennifer. She was my friend. We lost touch, but she was important to me. And you set me up with her widower without saying a word. What kind of game is this? It's not a game, Jennifer's voice was urgent now. Maya, please. Let me explain. Then explain. Jennifer took a breath. Sophie asked me to, before she died. Maya went very still. What? She didn't know she was going to die, obviously. But we had this conversation maybe a year before the accident. We were talking about Ethan, about how he was such a good man, but so closed off emotionally. And she said if anything ever happened to her, she hoped he'd find someone who could understand him, who could see past his walls. Jennifer pulled out her phone, scrolled through something, then turned the screen toward Maya. It was a photo of a handwritten note. If something happens to me and Ethan is ready someday, introduce him to Maya Reeves. Remember her from college. The photographer, I always thought they'd be perfect together. They both see the world the same way, like it's something beautiful and broken. Don't force it. Just give them a chance to meet. Maya stared at the note, her vision blurring with tears. Sophie's handwriting, familiar and impossible. She wanted this, Maya whispered. She wanted you both to be happy. She knew you, Maya. She knew you'd understand Ethan's grief because you carry your own. You should have told me. Before, when you first suggested the date. I know. Jennifer reached across the table, took Maya's hand. I'm sorry. I thought if I told you, you'd say no. You'd run like you always do. And I needed you to just meet him to see if Sophie was right. Maya pulled her hand back. That wasn't your choice to make. I know, and I'm sorry. Jennifer's eyes were wet now, too. But Maya, I'm not sorry it worked. I'm not sorry you found each other. He doesn't know, Maya said. Ethan doesn't know I knew her. That I was at their wedding, her voice broke, that I canceled on her the day she died. Jennifer went pale. What? We'd made plans to have lunch, but I got a call about a job, a big one, and I canceled. I told her we'd reschedule. Maya's hands were fists on the table. If I hadn't canceled, if I'd met her that day, she wouldn't have been on that road at that time. She'd still be alive. Maya, no, you can't think like that. Why not? It's true. It's not true. It's guilt and grief talking. The accident wasn't your fault. But Maya couldn't hear her. She stood up, grabbed her bag. I have to go. Maya, wait. I need to think. I need to figure out how to tell him. Don't do anything rash, please. But Maya was already walking away, Jennifer's voice fading behind her. She drove without destination, just drove, hands tight on the wheel, and tears streaming down her face. Rain pounded against the windshield, and Seattle blurred into a wash of gray and lights. She ended up at the old sanitarium, the place Ethan had first shown her. She parked and sat in the car, staring at the ruins through the rain. Her phone buzzed. Ethan, hey, want to come over tonight? I'll cook. Or we can order in. Just want to see you. Maya stared at the message. She should tell him. She should call him right now and say everything. Instead, she turned off her phone and got out of the car. The rain soaked through her jacket, immediately cold and punishing. She walked through the ruins, past the broken windows and crumbling walls to the courtyard with the twisted tree. And then she screamed. She screamed for Sophie, for the friend she'd lost, and the guilt she carried. She screamed for Ethan, for the impossible situation they were in. She screamed for herself, for always running, for being too afraid to stay. She screamed until her throat was raw and her voice gave out. And then she sank down onto the wet ground and cried. She didn't know how long she sat there. Long enough for the rain to soak through to her skin. Long enough for the sky to darken toward night. Long enough that when she heard footsteps behind her, she wasn't even surprised. Maya, Ethan's voice. Of course it was Ethan. She didn't turn around. How did you find me? You told me once this was your favorite place we'd discovered together. And when you didn't answer my texts or calls, I knew. He came around and sat down beside her on the wet ground, not touching, but close. You're soaked, he said. So are you. They sat there in the rain, two broken people in a broken place. I talked to Jennifer, Ethan said quietly. After you left, she called me, told me what happened, what she told you. Maya's chest felt like it was being crushed. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I should have told you from the beginning that I knew her, Maya. He turned to face her. I know. She looked at him confused. What? I recognized you at the coffee shop that first night. It took me a minute, but I remembered. You were at our wedding, the second photographer. You and Sophie hugged, talked for a while. Maya felt like she'd been punched. You knew this whole time. I knew you'd been at the wedding. I didn't know you were friends until Jennifer told me tonight. But I knew there was a connection. Why didn't you say anything? Ethan's eyes were impossibly sad. For the same reason you didn't. Because I was afraid. I thought if I brought up Sophie, you'd see me as just a grieving widower. Not as me. Not as someone you could fall for. Oh, God. Maya covered her face with her hands. We're both idiots. Yeah, Ethan let out a shaky laugh. We really are. They sat there, the rain falling around them, and slowly Maya let her hands drop. She looked at Ethan, really looked at him. I canceled on her, she said. The day she died, we had plans and I canceled for work. If I hadn't... Don't. Ethan's voice was fierce. Don't do that to yourself. I spent a year thinking through every possible what if. What if I'd driven her that day? What if we'd left 5 minutes earlier or later? What if? What if? What if? He took her face in his hands, gentle but firm. It doesn't change anything. It just makes the grief worse. But you loved her. She loved you. That's what matters. Not the plans you canceled or the calls you didn't make. Just the love. Maya finally broke. She sobbed against his chest and Ethan held her, and they cried together for the woman who'd brought them together even in death. The rain eventually stopped. The clouds broke apart, revealing stars Maya hadn't seen in weeks. What do we do now? Maya asked, her voice hoarse. Ethan was quiet for a moment. I don't know, but I know I don't want to lose you. Sophie wouldn't have wanted that. How can you be sure? Because she knew me better than anyone. She knew I'd close myself off after she was gone. And she left breadcrumbs, Maya, the note to Jennifer. Probably other things I haven't found yet. She was trying to make sure I'd be okay. Maya thought about that, about Sophie's foresight, her love that reached beyond death. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too. What if we can't do this? What if it's too complicated, too heavy with her memory? Ethan pulled back enough to look at her. Then we'll figure it out. Together. But I need you to promise me something. What? Promise you won't run. Not without talking to me first. Not without giving us a real chance. Maya wanted to promise. Wanted to be brave enough to stay. But the fear was still there, cold and familiar. I can't promise that, she said honestly. But I can promise to try. Ethan nodded slowly. Okay. Trying is enough. He stood and offered her his hand. Maya took it, let him pull her to her feet. They walked back to their cars, still holding hands muddy and exhausted and raw. Come home with me, Ethan said. Let me make you tea and find you dry clothes and just let me take care of you tonight. Maya knew she should say no, should go home, process everything alone like she always did. But she was tired of being alone. Okay, she said. Yeah, okay. Ethan's apartment was exactly what Maya expected. Clean lines, minimal furniture, but warm. Art on the walls, books everywhere, guitar in the corner that looked well-loved. He disappeared into the bedroom and returned with sweatpants and a hoodie. Bathroom's through there. Take a hot shower. I'll make tea. Maya showered until the water ran cold, washing away mud and rain and some of the emotional residue of the day. When she emerged, wrapped in Ethan's two large clothes, and she found him in the kitchen, 2 mugs of tea steaming on the counter. Chamomile, he said, good for shock. Are we in shock? I think we might be. They took their tea to the couch. Ethan turned on a lamp but kept the light low. Rain had started again outside, soft against the windows. Can I ask you something? Maya said after a while. Anything. Do you think Sophie would be okay with this, with us? Ethan considered the question seriously. I think she'd be happy. She always wanted me to be happy, and she had good instincts about people. She suggested me specifically. Yeah, Ethan smiled small and sad. That sounds like her. Always matchmaking, even from beyond. It doesn't feel wrong to you to be with your wife's friend. It felt wrong at first, Ethan admitted. When I first recognized you, I almost left the coffee shop. But then you started talking about invisible spaces, and I realized Sophie was right. We do see the world the same way. Maya set down her tea, pulled her knees to her chest. I think about her all the time now, about how I let our friendship fade, about how I wasn't there when she needed me. She didn't hold it against you. I know she didn't. Ethan reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone. I want to show you something. He scrolled through his photos, then held out the phone. It was a screenshot of a text conversation. From Sophie, ran into Maya Reeves today. Remember her from college. We had coffee, and it was like no time had passed at all. She's doing amazing work as a photographer. You two would get along, I think. Both broody artists who pretend you don't need people. The timestamp was 6 months before Sophie died. Maya's eyes blurred. She mentioned me. She mentioned you a lot. She worried about you being alone, about you not letting anyone in. She knew me too well. Yeah, Ethan took his phone back, stared at the message. She knew both of us too well. That's why she thought we'd work. They sat in silence for a while, just being present with each other and with Sophie's ghost, which didn't feel as heavy now. More like a presence than a haunting. I should probably go, Maya said eventually, though she didn't move. You could stay, Ethan said carefully. On the couch, I mean. It's late and you're exhausted. Maya looked at him. There was no pressure in his eyes, no expectation, just an offer. Okay, she said it softly. I'll stay. Ethan got her a blanket and a pillow. He hesitated at the doorway to his bedroom. Maya. Yeah, thank you for today, for all of it, for not running. I came close. But you didn't. That matters. After he'd gone to bed, Maya lay on the couch staring at the ceiling. She could hear the rain, the distant sound of traffic, Ethan moving around in the next room. She thought about Sophie, about the woman she'd known in college, bright and fierce and convinced that love was worth the risk. About the note Jennifer had shown her, Sophie's careful handwriting, planning for a future she wouldn't see. And Maya made a decision. She wouldn't run. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She would stay, and she would try, and she would let herself love this man who'd been loved by her friend. Because Sophie had been right. They did see the world the same way. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. 3 weeks. That's how long the artist residency in Oregon would last. 3 weeks of solitude in a cabin in the woods, surrounded by other artists expected to create something meaningful from the silence. Maya had applied 6 months ago before everything got complicated. When the acceptance letter arrived, she'd almost declined. But then she'd looked at Ethan across the dinner table, had seen the way he was trying so hard to be okay, to not let Sophie's ghost consume them both. And she'd known she needed space. They both did. "It's a good opportunity," Ethan had said when she told him. But his eyes had been sad. "You should go." "Are you sure?" "No." He'd smiled, small and honest. "But I think you need this. And I think I need to learn how to be okay when you're not here." So she'd said yes to Oregon, but the night before she left, Maya couldn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table staring at an envelope she'd prepared, knowing it would hurt Ethan, but also knowing he deserved the truth. All of it. Inside was the photograph. The one from the wedding 7 years ago. Ethan and Sophie, radiant and impossibly young, caught in a moment of pure joy that Maya had captured without knowing its significance. She'd written a letter too. Brief because some things couldn't be explained in words. "Ethan, I took this photo 7 years ago. I didn't know who you were then. Didn't know that the woman laughing in this picture would become so important to me, or that I'd lose her, or that I'd find you. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was afraid of losing you, of becoming a ghost in your life the way Sophie is in mine. But you deserve to have this, to remember her like this, to know that someone captured your happiness before it slipped away. I don't know what we're doing, you and me. I don't know if Sophie's blessing is enough or if we're just two broken people trying to make sense of senseless loss. But I know I'm tired of running. I know that for the first time in my life, I want to stay. I'll be back in 3 weeks, if you still want me to be. Maya." She sealed the envelope, wrote his name on it, and left it on his doorstep at dawn before driving south. Oregon was beautiful in the way only the Pacific Northwest could be. Dense forests, misty mornings, the kind of quiet that felt sacred. The residency was held at a converted farmhouse where 10 artists lived and worked, each in their own studio space, but sharing meals and critiques. Maya should have thrived here, should have used the time to finish her photo book, to create new work, to clear her head. Instead, she felt Ethan's absence like a physical ache. She checked her phone obsessively the first few days, but there were no messages, no calls, just silence that felt louder than words. On the fourth day, she finally texted him. "Made it safely. It's beautiful here." The response came hours later. "Good, I'm glad." That was all. Maya stared at those 3 words, trying to read meaning into them, into the space between them. Was he angry? Hurt? Had the photograph and letter been a mistake? She wanted to call him, to explain better, to hear his voice. But she'd asked for space, and he was giving it to her. The cruelty of getting what you asked for. Maya threw herself into work. She woke before dawn every day and hiked into the forest with her camera, looking for invisible spaces. She found them everywhere. The hollow beneath an ancient cedar tree, a collapsed barn reclaimed by ferns, a creek bed that had run dry, leaving only smooth stones and shadows. She photographed obsessively, trying to capture something she couldn't name. Loss, maybe. Or the shape of absence. The way spaces changed when the things that defined them were gone. The other artist noticed. At dinner one night, a sculptor named James asked her about her project. "You're photographing emptiness," he observed, "but it doesn't feel empty. There's weight to it." "Memory has weight," Maya said quietly. "Whose memory?" She looked down at her plate. "Someone I loved, someone I lost." The table went quiet. These were artists who understood grief, understood that sometimes you had to create from the broken places to make them bearable. "That's beautiful," James said finally. "And hard. I'm sorry." Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Later that night, alone in her cabin, she finally let herself cry. Not just for Sophie, but for everything. For the years of running, of keeping people at arm's length, of choosing safety over connection. For Ethan, who she'd left behind, even though every cell in her body wanted to be near him. Her phone buzzed, a text from Jennifer. "How's Oregon?" Maya considered not responding. She was still angry at Jennifer, still processing the betrayal of the setup. But she also missed her friend. "It's okay. Productive." "That's good. Ethan asks about you." Maya's heart jumped. He does. Yeah, he's been different since you left. Quieter, but also, I don't know, more present somehow. He's working on something. What he won't say, but he's at the park site every day. I think he's finally finishing it. The memorial park. Maya felt something tight in her chest loosen slightly. If Ethan was working again, if he was moving forward, maybe that was good. Maybe they both needed this time apart to figure out how to be whole separately before they could be whole together. Tell him I say hi, Maya typed. Tell him yourself. He misses you. But Maya didn't text Ethan. She wasn't ready yet, wasn't sure what to say. So she just kept working, kept photographing, kept trying to understand what it meant to stay when all her instincts screamed to run. 2 weeks into the residency, Maya received a package. It arrived at breakfast delivered by the residency coordinator. A small cardboard box, no return address, just her name, and the Oregon address in Ethan's handwriting. Maya carried it back to her cabin, her hands shaking slightly. She sat on the floor and carefully opened it. Inside was a book, leather-bound, worn at the edges, clearly well-loved, a journal of some kind, and a note on top in Ethan's handwriting. Maya, I found this in a box of Sophie's things I'd never gone through. Couldn't go through. But after you left, I knew I needed to. I needed to understand what she wanted for us. Read the marked page. Then decide if you're still coming back. E. Maya's hands were trembling now. She opened the journal, carefully found the page marked with a folded piece of paper. The date at the top was August 2021, a year before Sophie died. Ethan's been distant lately. Not in a bad way, just inward. I know he loves me, but sometimes I wonder if he knows how to let himself be happy. He's so focused on what could go wrong that he forgets to appreciate what's right. I've been thinking about the future, about what would happen if something happened to me. Morbid, I know, but I had this nightmare last night that I was gone and Ethan just stopped. Stopped living, stopped creating, stopped letting people in. So I'm writing this down in case something does happen and someone finds this and can remind him. It's okay to move on. It's okay to be happy again. It's okay to find someone else to love. I think about Maya sometimes. Maya Reeves from college. We ran into each other last month and it was like no time had passed. She's still guarded, still afraid of getting hurt. And I kept thinking she's like Ethan in that way. Two people so afraid of loss that they'd rather be alone than risk it. If I could gift Ethan anything, I'd gift him Maya. Not as a replacement, but as a reminder that broken things can still be beautiful. That walls can come down if you meet someone willing to climb them. That love doesn't have to be fearless to be real. If you're reading this, Ethan, and if you've found Maya or she's found you, don't run, either of you. Please. You deserve each other. You deserve to try. And Maya, if somehow you're reading this too, he's worth staying for. Even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary. All my love. Maya read the entry 3 times before the words finally sank in. Sophie had known, had seen both of them so clearly, had understood their fears and their potential, and had written this like a map for the future. A future Sophie wouldn't see but had tried to ensure anyway. Maya pressed the journal to her chest and sobbed. Not from grief, not exactly. From the overwhelming weight of being loved like this, even in death. From the realization that Sophie had believed in them before they'd believed in themselves. She picked up her phone and finally called Ethan. He answered on the second ring. Maya. His voice sounded rough, like he'd been crying too, or maybe just hadn't slept. I got the journal, she said. I know, I figured you would by now. Ethan. She couldn't find words big enough. She knew. Yeah, a pause. She always knew. I'm coming home. What your residency isn't done for another week. I don't care. I need to see you. Is that okay? Can I come home? The silence on the other end was so long, Maya almost thought the call had dropped. Then please, Ethan said, and his voice broke on the word. Please come home. Maya left Oregon the next morning. She apologized to the residency director, promised to return someday, and drove north with Sophie's journal on the passenger seat beside her. She arrived in Seattle just after sunset. The city was gray and drizzling, the Space Needle barely visible through low clouds. Beautiful in its gloom. Maya didn't go to her apartment, didn't call Ethan to tell him she was back. Instead, she drove to the address Jennifer had mentioned, the Memorial Park. It was finished. Maya parked on the street and walked through the entrance, a simple arch of wood and stone. The park beyond was small but exquisitely designed. Winding paths, native plants, benches placed in contemplative spots. And everywhere those invisible spaces Ethan had talked about. Gaps between trees that framed views, shadows that gave depth to light, emptiness that made the fullness more precious. At the center of the park was a small clearing with a circular bench around an oak tree. And embedded in the bench was the bronze plaque Maya had seen in her vision that morning at the beginning of all this. But as she got closer, she realized there was more. Another plaque smaller on the opposite side of the bench. She walked around, her heart pounding, and read, "For Sophie, who taught me to find light in the shadows. For Maya, who reminded me that shadows are just proof that light exists." Maya's knees gave out. She sat down hard on the bench, tears streaming down her face. He'd done it. He'd finished it. Not just for Sophie, but for both of them. For all three of them. "I was hoping you'd come here first." Maya spun around. Ethan was standing at the edge of the clearing, hands in his pockets, looking uncertain and hopeful and scared all at once. "Ethan," she breathed. He walked toward her slowly, like he was afraid she might bolt. When he reached the bench, he sat down beside her, close but not touching. "You finished it," Maya said. "I couldn't not. Not after reading that journal entry, not after understanding what Sophie wanted. It's beautiful. It's for all of us." Ethan looked at the plaques. "I spent so long thinking that moving on meant betraying her. But she never asked me to stay stuck. She asked me to be happy." Maya reached for his hand, threaded their fingers together. "I'm sorry I left. Don't be. You needed space. And I needed time to do this. To prove to myself I could finish something I'd started." They sat there in the growing dark, the park around them quiet except for wind in the trees. Maya thought about how far they'd come, how much had changed since that first coffee date when they'd been two strangers afraid to hope. "Maya," Ethan said quietly, "I have something else to tell you." She looked at him, saw the nervousness in his eyes. "What?" "When I was going through Sophie's things, I found something else. Letters. She'd written a bunch of them to different people with instructions to her lawyer to deliver them if anything happened to her. Most got sent years ago, but one was marked, 'Do not deliver until Maya Reeves and Ethan Cole are together.' Apparently Sophie had put you in her will somehow as a contingency." Maya's heart stopped. "What?" "The lawyer just delivered it. To your apartment, I think. But since you weren't there, they left a notice." "How do you know this?" "The lawyer called me when the delivery failed, asked if I knew where you were." Maya pulled out her phone, checked her messages. Sure enough, there was a voicemail from an unknown number. A law firm. "Should I?" She looked at Ethan. "Should we go get it?" "I think we have to." They drove to Maya's apartment together. The notice was taped to her door, instructions for pickup at the law office in the morning. But when Maya called the number, the lawyer surprised her. "Ms. Reeves, actually, I'm still at the office. I can have it ready for you if you'd like to come now. I've been hoping to close this file. It's been pending for 3 years." So they went, downtown to a high-rise with a view of Elliott Bay. The lawyer, an older woman named Patricia, met them in the lobby and handed Maya a sealed envelope. "Sophie Cole was my client for many years," Patricia said gently. "She prepared thoroughly for contingencies. This was her final letter to you with very specific delivery instructions." "Thank you," Maya whispered. Back in the car, Maya stared at the envelope. Her name in Sophie's handwriting. 3 years old, but feeling immediate. "Do you want me to drive us somewhere?" Ethan asked. "Or we can go back to my place, or yours, whatever you need." "Your place," Maya said. "I want to read it with you there." At Ethan's apartment, they sat on the couch. Maya carefully opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. "Dear Maya, if you're reading this, then 2 things have happened. I'm gone, and you and Ethan have found each other. I hope it wasn't too painful, the finding. I hope Jennifer didn't meddle too much knowing her. She probably did. I need you to know something. The day we had coffee that last time we saw each other, you canceled our next meeting because of a job. You apologized so much, said we'd reschedule soon. And I said it was fine, that I understood. I did understand, and I never blamed you. Not for that, not for anything. But I knew you, Maya. I knew you'd blame yourself if something happened to me. You have this way of carrying guilt that isn't yours to carry. So I'm writing this now. While I'm healthy and happy to tell you, let it go. You didn't cause what happened to me, whatever it was. I'm hoping I died peacefully in my sleep at 95, but let's be realistic. You were my friend and you were good to me, and the time we had together was enough. Now about Ethan. I'm assuming you've met him by now if Jennifer followed through on my somewhat insane request. I know it seems strange planning for my husband to meet my college friend in the event of my death, but I promise it makes sense. You two are alike in ways that scared me and comforted me both. You're both so afraid of being hurt that you'd rather be alone. But Maya Honey alone is safe, but it's also empty. And Ethan needs someone who understands that, who won't push him to be okay before he's ready, but also won't let him hide forever. And Ethan, he's patient in ways most people aren't. He'll wait for you to be ready to stay. He'll climb your walls because he has walls of his own and knows how to be gentle with them. I'm not asking you to replace me in his life. I'm asking you to be there for him the way you were there for me, honest and present and fully yourself. That's all either of you needs. Don't run, Maya. Stay. Even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary. And Ethan, if you're reading this over her shoulder, I know you are. Let her in. All the way in. You deserve to be happy again. I promise it's not betraying me. It's honoring what we had by believing in what you could have. I love you both. Take care of each other. All my love always, Sophie. P.S. Maya. There's a photo album in my storage unit, box labeled College Years. I left it for you. It's mostly embarrassing pictures of us being ridiculous. But there are some good ones too. Remember me like that, happy and ridiculous, not in whatever way I left this world. Maya was crying so hard she could barely breathe. Ethan had his arms around her, and he was crying too, and they held each other while Sophie's words washed over them, her love reaching across time and death to give them permission to live. She really loved you, Maya said when she could speak again. She loved us both, Ethan said, enough to plan for this, all of it. I don't know how to deserve this, any of this. You don't have to deserve it. You just have to accept it. Maya pulled back enough to look at him. His face was wet with tears, his eyes red, but there was something peaceful in his expression. I'm staying, she said. I'm scared and I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm staying. I'm scared too, Ethan said, but I want to try. With you, if you'll have me. On one condition. What? We go get that photo album tomorrow, together, and we remember her the way she wanted, happy and ridiculous. Ethan smiled real and bright despite the tears. Deal. The next morning, Maya woke up on Ethan's couch to the smell of coffee and pancakes. She found him in the kitchen, hair messy from sleep, making breakfast with the kind of focused attention he brought to everything. Morning, he said when he saw her. I hope you're hungry. They ate breakfast together, talking about small things. The weather gray as always. The progress on Maya's photo book close to done. Ethan's next project, a community garden on the east side. It felt domestic, normal, like they'd been doing this for years instead of months. After breakfast, they drove to the storage facility where Sophie's things were kept. Ethan had a key but admitted he'd only been here once right after she died when he'd packed everything up in a grief-stricken haze. I couldn't look at it, he said as they walked down the fluorescent-lit hallway. Couldn't go through her stuff without breaking down. And now I think I can, especially if you're here. They found the unit, opened the door. Inside were boxes neatly labeled in Sophie's handwriting. Clothes, books, art, kitchen, and there in the corner, college years. Maya pulled out the box, sat down on the concrete floor and opened it. Inside were photo albums, yearbooks, concert tickets, inside jokes written on napkins and preserved like artifacts. Ethan sat beside her as she opened the first album, and there they were. Sophie and Maya at 19, 20, 21, young and bright and convinced they'd live forever. There were pictures of parties and study sessions and road trips, Sophie making ridiculous faces. Maya behind the camera in most shots, but occasionally caught by someone else's lens, usually laughing at something Sophie had done. You were close, Ethan said softly. We were, and then we weren't. And I've regretted that for 3 years. She didn't regret it. You heard her letter. I know. Maya traced her finger over a photo of Sophie 20 years old and grinning. But I wish we'd had more time. Me too. They looked harrowing. So all the albums together, and Ethan shared stories Maya didn't know, about trips she hadn't been on, about the years after college when Sophie had become the woman who'd eventually marry Ethan. And Maya shared her stories about the time they'd accidentally locked themselves out of their dorm at 3 a.m., about the philosophy professor they'd both had a crush on, about the night Sophie had talked Maya through a panic attack patient and unshakable. She was good at that, Ethan said, being steady when everyone else was falling apart. She really was. They spent hours in that storage unit remembering, and somehow the grief felt lighter shared between them, like they were distributing the weight so no one person had to carry all of it. Finally, as the afternoon was fading, they packed up the albums. Maya kept a few photos. Ethan kept a few too. And they agreed to come back together someday when they were ready to go through the rest. "Thank you," Ethan said as they locked the unit, "for doing this with me. Thank you for letting me." They drove back toward the city, quiet but comfortable. As they passed the memorial park, Maya asked, "Can we stop?" Ethan pulled over. The park was empty in the late afternoon light. They walked to the center, to the bench with the two plaques. Maya sat down and Ethan joined her. "I want to show you something," Maya said. She pulled out her phone, opened her photo gallery, and found the picture she'd taken that first night. The lake, the lights, the reflection. "This was our first date," she said. "The moment I knew I was in trouble." Ethan smiled. "Can I see?" She handed him the phone. He looked at the image for a long time. "It's beautiful," he said finally. "You see light in ways most people don't. You create spaces in ways most people don't." He handed back the phone. "We make a good team." "Yeah," Maya said, "we do." They sat there as the sun set behind the clouds, painting everything in shades of gray and silver. Maya leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder. He put his arm around her. "I love you," Ethan said quietly. "I should probably say that. I love you, Maya." Maya's heart swelled painfully full. "I love you too, even though it scares me." "It scares me too, but I think that's okay." Sophie would say it's okay. "Yeah," Maya smiled. "She would." They stayed until the park lights came on automatic and warm. Other people walked past, couples, families, people alone with their thoughts. The park was doing what it was designed to do, holding space for memory and grief and healing. Eventually they stood to leave. But before they did, Maya took one more photo. The bench, the plaques, Ethan standing beside the oak tree with light filtering through the branches above him. "What are you going to do with that one?" he asked. "Probably print it. Hang it somewhere I can see it every day. As a reminder." "Of what?" "That shadows are proof that light exists." She lowered her camera. "That broken things can still be beautiful. That staying is scarier than running but worth it anyway." Ethan closed the distance between them and kissed her. Soft and slow and full of promise. Maya kissed him back and it felt like coming home. Not to a place but to a person. To a choice she was making every day to not run. When they pulled apart, Ethan took her hand. "Come on," he said. "Let's go home." And together with Sophie's blessing and each other's hands held tight, they walked out of the memorial park and into the rest of their lives 1 year later. The gallery was packed. Maya stood near the entrance, nervous energy making her hands shake slightly. Around her, people moved through the exhibition, stopping to look at the photographs on the walls. Invisible spaces, a collaboration. The photos were hers. The architectural drawings and design notes were Ethan's. Together, they'd created something neither could have made alone. Forgotten places rendered beautiful through attention and care. "You did it," Jennifer said, appearing beside her with 2 glasses of wine. "This is amazing." "We did it," Maya corrected. "Me and Ethan." "Speaking of whom," Jennifer nodded across the room. "He's being cornered by art critics." Maya looked over and saw Ethan, handsome in a dark suit, patiently explaining his design philosophy to a group of very serious-looking people. He caught her eye and smiled, and Maya felt that familiar warmth in her chest. Love. Still scary. Still worth it. "How's the book selling?" Jennifer asked. "Better than expected. We're already talking about a second printing." "Sophie would be proud." "Yeah." Maya's eyes drifted to a photo near the entrance. The memorial park taken at dawn light breaking through the trees. She would. Later, when the crowd had thinned and the night was winding down, Maya and Ethan stood together in front of that photograph. "Do you think she's watching?" Maya asked. "Honestly, I don't know, but I like to think she is." and that she's smiling. She's probably laughing at how long it took us to figure our shit out. Ethan laughed. Definitely. Maya leaned into him, felt his arm come around her waist. They stood there, two people who'd found each other through grief and chosen each other through fear, looking at a photograph of a place built to honor memory while making space for new life. Hey, Ethan said after a while, I have something for you. Oh yeah. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Maya's heart jumped. Relax, he said, smiling. It's not that, not yet anyway. He opened the box. Inside was a key. My apartment is great, Ethan said, but it's small, and you're there all the time anyway. So I was thinking maybe we find a place. Together. Something with good light for your studio and space for my drafting table. Something that's ours. Maya looked at the key, then at Ethan and felt tears prick her eyes. You want to live together. I want to build a life with you. This seems like a good next step. It was commitment. It was the opposite of running. It was everything Maya had always been afraid of. Yes, she said. God, yes. He kissed her, and around them the gallery lights dimmed, ready to close. But Maya wasn't afraid of the dark anymore, because even in darkness there was light, and even in grief there was joy. And in the space between broken and healed, there was love. Always love.